I want to make a quick announcement regarding privacy and data protection. As this webinar may involve the sharing of sensitive information, we kindly ask all participants to respect the confidentiality of the information presented. Please do not record, distribute, or utilize any part of this webinar without explicit permission from the organizers and presenters. And with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar. And I'd like to thank our audience for joining us for this insightful webinar on the multi-vendor versus single platform approach. My name is Boaz Barzel, and I'm honored to have this discussion alongside this esteemed panelist and some of the foremost experts in the field. As we know, many organizations face critical decision choosing between multi-vendor strategy and a single platform approach. And not just in cybersecurity, but we're seeing that everywhere, even outside of it. Now, both approaches have their unique advantages and their unique challenges. The right choice can significantly impact organizations' security posture, operational efficiency, and overall risk management. So if you would ask me what's better, I would probably answer like everyone, it depends. There's multiple paths, and every organization would start with the path that's right for them. They can either do it through a specific vendor, a specific use case, and then they'll kind of grow that for a multi-vendor approach. Some will immediately choose with a more of a platform approach, really depending on where they are and what efficiency elements are included in the multiple use case that they want. Now, from a value use case, we might look on customization and flexibility, where you need to tailor their security stack based on specific needs, where a platform sometimes will not fit. But the other end, and when we have multiple tools, we get into different challenges where it's not simple anymore. And it's really becomes difficult to manage all of these tools. So we might get a platform to simplify everything and improve the integration. And then with that, we might start taking innovation and looking into specific elements and add to that platform. So even if we are going to choose a platform approach or a multi-vendor approach, we'll find ourselves moving between those two areas. So as kind of we're open it, I'd like to introduce our speakers, Adam Sanders, Oviedo Catarina, Hirtik Vijay, Cassio Batista Pereira, and Jean-Yves Mateo. I'll give each one of them the chance to introduce themselves right now. And really with this impressive lineup, I'll start with you, Jean, and please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer at the Bank International in Luxembourg. And since 2001, I've been working as a CISO in a number of financial institutions in Luxembourg. I have master's degrees in information security from the University of Luxembourg, and I have some advanced knowledge at the DORA and NIS2 level, and I recently posted a document on LinkedIn about it, just regarding my hobbies, biometric, security, and golf.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jean. And to you, Adam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Saunders. I've been working in information security for around 25, 26 years. Like Jean, I've been a CISO and I'm also a fan of golf. But I've worked multiple fields rather than sticking in one area. I've worked defense, finance, gaming and betting. So I was security operations manager and compliance manager for the National Lottery in the UK. And most recently, I've worked in hospitality and currently working in construction.
Very diverse background. That's very nice. Thank you, Adam. And to you, Ritik.
Hey, thanks, Batman. I'm Ritik, and I am a senior security engineer at this is a startup in our country, Cred. It's a financial startup, again, finance, right? And I've been heading our DevSecOps group where we are trying to automate our security as much as we can, because with scale, you need that, right? So I really am interested in open source projects and solutions for security, especially because when you see what is the solution and how it works, it kind of makes all sense if you need it or not. So that's quite about me.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Ovi, to you.
Hey, Ross, much appreciated for the ability to speak today with you. Unfortunately, I'm not a golf player, but it seems that I need to expand my profile with such capabilities. What can I say about myself? I'm working in the industry for approximately 16 years. I've started as a security engineer, or basically I started in the engineering field, working for different type of organizations, going from private to government type. And today I am working with an organization that it's offering, that it's connecting the best talent on the market with the best organizations that are looking such talent. And I'm leading their security department, englobing for all the security domains in that, going from incident response, so architecture, application security, and also GRC. In a nutshell, that's about myself.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ovi. And last but not least, Cassio, to you.
Yeah, hey everyone, thank you both for the invitation. As a good Brazilian, I'm this football player, very good one. I'm 2 decades already on the road. I started as software developer, but it's much more fun to look into the code that it says it's vulnerable or have a problem that you didn't build yourself. That's why I migrated to application security. Today I work at Backbase, which is actually not financial. We create banking systems, but we are not a bank. They are our customers actually. I was also a teacher in some universities back there in Brazil. I also lead some international conference like Besides Krakow, for example. I do run some meetups. I'm really engaged with this community sharing, knowledge sharing, teaching, and so on. But my whole focus now is to help companies to deliver or to build secure software because our lives depends on it.
Yes, that's very good. So I love golf. I love soccer or football, depends on which country you are at. It's really is amazing, and it's really nice to see everyone here and from these diverse backgrounds. I would like to start really from you, Cassio, and can you tell us a little bit about the trends you see in cybersecurity that influence the choice between a security vendor, a single or a multi-vendor approach with a single platform?
Yeah, sure. I've been working a few companies already, and one of the pain points I would say regarding this topic, it's exactly the management itself. Like to manage one, let's say, let's bring to the application security context. To manage one code scanning solution, then you need to manage an application scanner solution like a DAST, for example, and then you need to manage a container scanner, and then you need to manage a SCA solution. So all these scanners, all these tools that will assess your code or application, the more I would say, the better. But on the other hand, you also need people to handle all of this. Yeah? Plus the fact that you need to deal with all the outputs, all the vulnerabilities, all the risks, whatever these tools are there to find, right? And the main thing like now, what I see as trending is the companies looking for a way to either have this consolidated, like you push a button and you have all your scanners, or the same way you push a button and you fix all your problems that you find on all those tools. Yeah. So I would say this consolidation is the trend that companies are looking for now to solve this kind of problem.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I would also love to press a button and fix a lot more things, more than just the code. I'm also connecting back to the fact that you're saying this is not my problem. When you look at someone else's code, that's their problem. So I'll continue with you, Jean. And can you tell me from your experience, really, what are the key benefits and drawbacks of the multi-vendor approach? Cassio kind of mentioned the single platform and kind that direction, and I'd like to hear from you about the kind of the multi-vendor approach. Just unmute yourself first.
Yes, it's better. Sorry.
Fantastic.
Excuse me. For me, the multi-sourcing benefits, it's multi-sourcing can offer many advantages, increases competition, bargaining power, reduce the dependency and risk, and enhance innovation and flexibility. Sorry. By having multiple suppliers, you can leverage their prices, quality, and delivery times to get the best deal. And here in Luxembourg, I'm working a lot with my network because it's very interesting to share our ID and our problems with the other CISO on the place. And it's very interesting to this one. And another benefit for me, it's diversifying your sources can also help reduce the impact of supply disruptions and mitigate the risk of losing our competitive edge or intellectual property.
Yeah, that's very good. Adam, what's your take on this?
So throughout my career, I've worked in environments with both. If you were saying earlier what your personal preference would be, mine is always multi-vendor, because I feel that with multiple products, you can build up a nice overlap. So if one vendor is particularly good in one area, you can reinforce areas for other vendors where they're not as strong. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to budget, resources in terms of team, personnel, and your risk matrix. Quite often, if you're a small company or you have small teams, a single vendor is much easier. It gives you a complete picture, and it will meet risk profile. Large companies, more complex environments, a multi-vendor approach would really benefit you there.
That's really good. That's really good. And it's really interesting as, you know, we talked about different companies having different direction. And I agree with the innovation, because we see a lot of vendors that usually come into the market. They're usually very innovative and they bring their own take or their own way of solving a problem. And then you can combine those. But then you get into different challenges, and how well do you combine those and how well do you integrate that? And I would like to hear from you, Ritik, a little bit about the examples maybe on innovative technologies and tools that you've recently, that are recently emerged and kind of impacting AppSec.
Right. So AppSec has been going on for as far as we can think, right? And from the early days, most of the things has been much manual. And we do need things for like manual code reviews, or you have to review whatever ships out from to your customers, from your developers. And it's not always maintainable, scalable when you have lots of thousands of repositories, right? But now new tools like, I suppose Joan came in 2019, which is an open source tool, but very fantastic at some SaaS tool writings, right? Then other competitors followed up. We have now SemGrep, GitHub CodeQL, etc., etc. There are open source competitors to this and closed source competitors both. So I wouldn't take a side just yet in SaaS. But I suppose SaaS tools are pretty amazing for now. So it's from that factor that you can actually automate whatever your security engineers were doing while code reviewing, although not the entire part. But you can save the bandwidth of code reviews for your security engineers by a huge amount if your engineers know how to write SaaS rules, right? And to make it even better, right, there are certain open source alternatives like Chen. It's from OASP and AppThread. What they try to do is to try to automate the SaaS rules itself. So these tools, I suppose, are pretty interesting. And again, coming to multi-vendor or single vendors, you really can't expect single vendors to adopt so many various tools, right? So that market is flooded with them. So you can't really expect everyone to adopt all of these tools. So pretty much, I would say SAST, and with the ongoing Cyber Resilience Act, we have mandatory SBOM and SC analysis. So I would say tools for these are pretty interesting and important for us.
That's really interesting, and it actually leads me to the next question. As you're saying, yeah, we're talking about multi-vendors, but then Ovi, I'll direct it to you. So how do you ensure that there's no security gaps or overlaps in the coverage from a multi-vendor approach?
Well, this is a very difficult question to actually provide a positive answer. Like, how do you ensure that specific gap? But I will have to piggyback on the answer that Adam provided. It all depends on the security maturity or the company maturity that you have at the time that you're starting to engage into specific tools. So if you look at startup organizations that are not having complete or strict regulations requirements, in having an investment from their side for such tools to adapt and have those controls within the organization, we'll prioritize that money or that cash flow investment into generating business and developing the market. I think the decision from their side will be easy. When it comes to more mature organizations that have multiple platforms to do that, I would say that it's all up to the digitalization status that they are, right? So you have organizations that are still operating in a traditional approach with an on-prem data center. They are starting to change their processes, their modus operandi to go into the cloud, to try to be a bit more cloud native. And then that's where they start to see that the existing tools that they have are not compatible with the new ways of working into a cloud native approach. The processes and the architectural designs are not exactly the same. So it's not an easy answer to say, can we ensure that the coverage that we have between the tools covers all the blind spots and ensures us that we have the visibility? I would say it's more associated to the security, to the maturity of the company, but also to the security maturity of the specific team that it's onboarding in that specific journey. That's how I would say it. It's all up to the security maturity of the organization that it's willing to start that digitalization journey that in the region.
That's interesting, and I agree with the journey, and I see Adam wants to comment here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's to do with the journey, but in terms of how do you avoid gaps or look for overlaps, sometimes overlaps are good. Defense in depth is a historical concept. It still applies in modern day application security. It applies in cloud environments as well. The best way to really find out where your gaps are, and this works for both single vendors and multi-vendors, is test. Whether it's testing code, if it's testing more traditional infrastructure, perimeters, and so on. The only way that you'll ever find gaps is by testing. And it doesn't matter if it's a single vendor, because you may find that they've got blind spots, or if it's multi-vendors where you might have gaps between the overlapping technologies.
That's really an interesting point. Yes, Obi.
I just wanted to comment on that statement from Adam. All the security that you're performing at any organization level, all the security controls and assessment must be evidence-driven. If you leave a security organization just by deploying a security tool or writing a policy or defining a set of controls without actually having evidence-driven security for the controls associated to the objective that you're expecting from that, you're basically bound to have those blind spots that that Boaz mentioned.
Yes, and it's true, and really taking it, in a broader look, when you have multiple tools, testing to see really where the gaps are. Sometimes the testing can be, let's say, initiated by a third-party group, just so we're not biased. I'd like to take another side of it and really talk about best practices from an integration perspective, and maybe Jean, you can help us understand how do you overcome those integration issues between those multiple solutions and products?
Yes, good question. Multi-sourcing can come with some challenges such as increased complexity and cost. When managing multiple suppliers, you need to dedicate more time, money, and resources to coordinating, communicating, and monitoring their performance and compliance. For best practice, for me, there is an example. Luxembourg is a small country. And if you need to also as part of your IT, it is important to choose vendors who have the, intelligence to work together and know against each other. It is also important to be clear about what you want and what you expect when you choose the multiple vendors. For me, this one reduces the risk that if there is a problem, each of the vendors will blame the other one, and that's the problem. They are in the service of the bank, and the issue at the end is the resolution of this problem. If you should explain this one to the multiple vendors, it's a trust, and it's very important to establish this one at the first step.
Yes, that's an interesting point. And so, first of all, you were talking about the integration and kind of building the relationship between the different vendors, which is something that's sometimes not as easy to do, but it's definitely important. Yeah, I understand that. Coming from a vendor side, we're encountering that kind of situations. But I really want to touch another point, and maybe Cassie, you can help me with it. I want to touch with the risks associated with multi-vendor approach. So we talked about kind of some of the challenges, integrations, but also what are the risks really that's associated with that?
It's a good point, and I would bring a kind of a reflection to the audience to try to answer this question.
Mhm.
For example, when we talk about cars, there are no cars. I will not mention any brands, but there are no cars that the whole brand is building the whole car actually, right? Each piece of the car comes from a different vendor that we need an S-bomb to understand where they are from and so on. And but when you have a problem, you go to talk to that brand. You not go to each supplier for each piece, or to the wheels from the tires or whatever. So when it comes to cybersec or to the cloud environment, for example, you have a problem on your network, on your VPCs, whatever. You talk to Microsoft, you talk to AWS, to Amazon. They will handle everything for you, even though they are using other technologies and other things on the background, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to our area, I would say we should have something like this. Like if I'm relying in some ASPM that they have a SAST that they didn't build themselves, like they're using some open source or even another enterprise solution, I don't know. But if I have a problem or if I have something, these guys will be responsible for me. So I'm actually relying in a single vendor as this kind of relation of trust. But even though on the background, and I would say that's the reality, right? No single vendor can build the whole AppSec, cybersec area. It's kind of impossible, right? So that's what I would say is the one of the main risks, like to handle everything. Your attack surface, your management, the access management, everything is a mess already. So you don't need more. So if you have this one that you could rely on, this one vendor that you could rely on, this one name that could be your support, your trust, even though you have multi-technology behind, this would cut, I would say, or eliminate this kind of risks that we are kind of talking about. And there are a lot of risks, right? As the car example, you get expired piece or a technical or mechanical problem. It's the same with the software, it's the same with the solutions, right? But someone is looking that for you, so, and that's what we want. This management risk to be away from us.
Can I chime?
Yeah.
I believe that the multi-vendor path to try to aggregate everything into a single platform, it's going to be as good as the collaboration between the providers when it comes to the data that they will provide access. Imagine that you have your general tool that you are starting to ingest the data or the metrics from your different security solutions, right? Now, when you start that engagement with them to do those integrations, that the value that they can bring from those from the aggregation of the data from the different security tools that you have, it's very dependent on the data that the different vendors will be, let's say, motivated to share between themselves. Now imagine yourself, you have an innovative solution, and at the same time you see that someone is actually looking to integrate with you. And in today's world, data is power. Are you willing to share all the knowledge and the data that you have with someone else that can take the data, can understand it, and say, okay, well, I can build also a product based on the same data that will deliver the same outputs, and then I stopped doing the integration with that with that partner, and I started doing myself on that specific market or business line that I can generate. So in terms of integration, it's a very complex. And at the same time, I understand that each vendor will not look to try to redo the solutions from scratch, because it's reinventing the wheel. And if you look in the recent, if you look in the recent market purchases that have happened over the last 6 months, we see that Fortinet has acquired Lacework. We see that Wiz has acquired 2 different companies. We see that Palo Alto has acquired different organizations to be able, or Cisco has acquired Splunk. Still unsure about that, if they're trying to pay the invoice or actually buying the organization. But that overall integration, it's either, if you want to offer that capability to your customers, the easiest way to deliver a good product, it's actually having that adoption or acquisition, because you're going to have access to the full data. If you're going to base yourself in an open trust integration, then your integration might not be as good, or might not meet your customers' base expectations from you.
Yes. Now, I want to take this point even further. So you talked about acquisitions, you talked about kind of having, let's say, multi-vendors, and then the integration together, and similar to Aux, where we integrate with a lot of tools and we have a lot of connectors, and we're still able to bring value on top of that. But I'd like to take it maybe to you, Ritik, and talk about, so let's say we have a vendor, and that vendor had that kind of acquisition, they handle the integration. So then they're bringing you a single platform from that vendor. What do you see as kind of the primary risks from that kind of approach? As we've talked about multi-vendor, let's really talk about kind of the risk about a single vendor or a single platform approach on your end.
Right. So I could start from Ovidio's perspective of having multi-vendors in that fashion. But let's say some acquisition happened, right? And you have that sort of thing that you just talked about, and I'm pretty sure what you're talking about. Then in that case, you have this problem of trust but verify, right? So let's say I'm trusting that third-party vendor with my entire security, because I'm mostly like 80% or 60% giving off my security headache to them. And because they have their multi-vendor architecture in place, we think that it might be best for them to figure out the entire thing for us. But that level of trust is really, really, really tough to achieve. If you are, let's say, a financial corporation, you can't really hand over everything that you have for them to analyze, or there are regulations protecting that. You have country regulations, you have international laws, you have lots of things that you need to take care about. So those things come in the line. And at the end of the day, when you have your internal security team, they would often want to trust the project, but also verify the project at their whenever they want to, whenever they could. So that verification becomes a very, very big problem. Now, let's consider acquisitions, the same thing that Ovidio just mentioned, right? In a different aspect. So I'm in a single vendor lock-in, let's say it's a lock-in, right? I'm in a single vendor lock-in, and they are provide catering for me according to my needs, and it's working fine for now. But let's say I, as an organization, acquire a different organization, which happens quite often, right? So multiple acquiring, multiple mergers, a lot of new code bases come into contact. How do you figure out the same sort of integration levels with these new acquisitions in a single vendor approach? That becomes a huge problem. First, because you're trusting someone else for the entire thing, right? And now you have to do entire round of that trust with the new developer team, new security team that you onboarded with your acquisition, with those people, those new your partners in security, right? So you have to build that trust, and again, to build that trust, you need to verify. So it comes down to that fact that you need to verify the multi-vendor that you are using underlying whatever the transparent vendor that you are using upfront, but underlying what security features are they are adding, that you really need to focus on. One more very, very important thing that kind of keeps on happening, I would like to focus, is downtime. So you don't really want your security to go down ever. Well, you don't want anything to go down ever. Security is just an aspect of it. But
Yes.
In a single vendor approach, the guarantee of nothing going down ever is again a promise that comes as a trust, but again you need to verify that trust. So how do you initially verify that trust with that third party when they are using multiple vendors? That remains a question to me. Until and unless you try that for a longer period of time and you build trust with the individual components of that multi-vendor approach that they are using, and then finally, perhaps you can say that, okay, you manage these things for us, but these components, my security team is very familiar with these. And whenever I want to onboard something new, or maybe whenever I want to do some sort of truth seeking, my security team can go ahead and figure that out painlessly. So that would be something I would really like.
That's an interesting note on that, because to build trust, and as you said, it takes time to build trust. We encounter, in cases where we're working with prospects around, questioning other customers, existing customers. So building trust through those networks. So it's really is interesting in that sense. And I really think that, when you look at a single platform approach versus a multi-solution approach, we've covered a little bit of the kind of drawbacks and advantages of each one. We also have a question from the audience, so it's open to you all. I'll take a short break and we'll answer that question. And if anyone wants to share a few real-world examples where multi-platform worked better than a single approach for you, and the opposite way around. So feel free to kind of comment on that aspect.
If I may start
Go
with
ahead.
this one. Yeah, today I'm working at Backbase, and for us, for example, even though I'm big supporter of a single vendor, we have so many customizations. So the way of deliver software for one team is totally different than from another team. The way we scan SCA, for example, is too much customized. We have only scripts generating SBONs to upload to a solution to get the results to the vulnerability management system. So we have so many customizations that a single vendor would not fit. It's impossible. We already evaluated a few of solutions and a lot of things, and to customize on this single vendor would be a billionaire project. So it's not feasible. Huh? So for us, it's much easier to have specific vendors for specific problems. Other problems we fix ourselves with some automation. Of course, we're not creating our own SaaS solution, right? But we can benefit from one SaaS from the market that can help us with specific customizations that we have, that a single platform that we can integrate everything will not fit. So this is for me now, it's one scenario where multi-vendor is feasible. Doesn't matter what I prefer or not, it's just more feasible. And I think there is another question regarding costs. And I will touch this point as well, because if we are not buying everything to fix everything, we might save some money, right? I just need to fix the problem A and B. All the rest, I will handle my way. Instead of buying one expensive solution that could not fix all the problems, even though they are touching each one of them, but I have, in the end of the day, I have nothing actually 100% solved. Huh? So I think it's one use case where multi-vendor is more feasible, more fit for us.
Adam,
you want to elaborate?
Yeah, if we can take it on from where Cassie was just going to in terms of cost and answering that question that was in the Q&A. When it comes to deployment, going multi-vendor is more expensive than a single vendor. And I've worked in both environments enough times, enough different places, implemented enough tools. I can always tell you multi-vendor will always be more expensive to deploy. Where you see the benefits of multi-vendor in terms of financial cost only is when it comes to renewals, because you can often play off against other vendors, and they know if you're multi-vendor, you're going to, you're willing to look around, you're willing to potentially change to another supplier. Single vendors, it's a closed market. It's very, very difficult to replace everything in one go and replace one single vendor with, even with multiple vendors, it's still very difficult to move away from that single vendor market. And that's where we've often found real savings is when it comes to renewals.
Yeah. And then how do you overcome, other areas? So we talked about the cost and the financials. Do you also take, the efforts, then maintenance and integration and kind of working with multi-vendor support and hosting the relationship we just talked about? Do you take that into that account, or is that a separate area?
No, I take that into account, which is why I said that multi-vendors are more expensive. It's not just the purchase, it is the fact that you have to implement multiple systems multiple times. You've got your training costs, you've got your deployment costs. They're going to want to be sitting on different platforms, maybe operate in different ways, have different forms of logging. It's not centralized, so you need to put in additional layers to centralize. Getting that code right to integrate them and to get that seamless mesh, it all adds up in the cost when it comes to deployment. Where you get the benefits is, and it's already been said, if you only have a couple of areas that you're really, really focused on, that you have real concern with, if you're stuck in a single vendor, A, they might not have the right solution that you want, or it might not work the way that you want it to. And B, it might be that you have to buy an entire enterprise-wide solution for fixing a problem that is only tied to a single business unit or group.
Yeah. Ritik, you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I actually would second Adam on this regard, that cost goes high when you go to multi-vendor approach. But considering that not everyone is rich, some people have, some startups have to start with something less than nothing, right? And security, to be honest, it's not the first thing that startups look at. It pains us, but it is the truth. But startups do want to get by the compliance regulations, which is also important, right? You need to save your customers' data. You need to preserve that. And in order to do that, in my previous example, when I said that let's trust someone, when you trust someone, it's a problem. How do you verify? Well, when you're a startup, you don't have a lot of options. You just verify. You just don't verify. You just trust, right? So let's say you have a platform, some cloud platform, AWS, GCP. They are offering you certain SBOM export mechanisms or certain PagerDuty things or CloudWatch. They're offering certain kind of stuff that can help you with security, although you don't really have much bandwidth on it. Let's say you just have one person looking at the entire security posture. So I would say if you're a startup and you're short on bandwidth, short on everything, it would be best to go with a single vendor approach, so that whenever you grow out of it, whenever you need to actually verify things, that things are working properly, and you have a proper in-house security team, you can grow out of that into a multi-vendor approach. But initially, as a startup, obviously you need single vendor approach.
Yeah, exactly. And as you continue the growth, it becomes aware that you'll start with multi-vendor, you go on single vendor approach, and then it goes on a different direction with a multi-vendor approach. So it feels like we're always kind of going between one and another, depending on which area we're covering. So it really is amazing. And let's take it a step further and use kind of the remaining time to talk a little bit more around kind of solutions and the future and what we're seeing. And Jean, maybe I'll start with you around that. And what kind of new security technologies are you planning to implement kind of the near future, and why?
I like a sentence. For me, trust does not exclude control. And before to find the solution that I spoke now, we sent to the third parties some self-assessment that we have to trust them, and it's very difficult to see if there is a really good or not. Now, since this year, we decided to use a new solutions. I don't know if I can give the name, but just after. And as you know, DORA will require us to evaluate our third-party providers. And as I said, we have recently implemented a solution that allows us to evaluate third parties regarding using only public data, like hackers. And with this solution, I have information on the following control. It's measures and performance measures regarding, for example, the attack surface. It's the misconfiguration of critical ports, regarding the messaging, if DMARC, DKIM, or SPF is well configured. and or for the web TLS and SSL, just to see if the SSL services is vulnerable, for example, to breach attack, or if to be too permissive things. And another thing, it's with this one, this solution, you should and we should looking for the vulnerabilities, and we have everyday a control. And it's interesting for us for our exposition, but to see for the other vendors, it's we can see if the IT remediates the vulnerabilities. And when I asked to my IT, hey guys, is it okay? And they told me, yeah, yes. But with this solution, I can see the day after, oh, now the vulnerability is still there. It's important because, as I said, trust does not exclude control, and we have to be sure that when we work with third parties, there is no risk for us.
Yes, exactly. And this is a good point in how we maintain control, even though we're now adding more, let's say, more platform, more system, we're trusting multiple vendors. How do we maintain control? Usually it depends on the team and how you enforce it. But I'd like to talk really about, kind of those solutions, or maybe strategy and goals, and maybe Cassie, you can elaborate more around how do you evaluate and select those kind of either a platform approach or a multi-vendor approach when it comes to your organization security and goals.
Yeah, sure. If I would follow my own instincts, I would say that I have the Tony Stark mindset. I'm kind of neurotic of security, and I want to have the best of breed everything. But I'm more following the company's appetite for that, because in the end of the day, it's the business decision, right? Unless it's my company, then I decide. It's I just need to do the best that I can with the requirements that I have. So, for example, if I have a requirement like we need a solution to monitor the branch protection on our repositories, for example, to see whoever is pushing code to production, let's say. We might have vendors that do this, and plus features, plus integrations, notifications, and something, or I can just build a script myself and fix the problem, right? Consume the, I don't know, GitHub API and check this information. So what I do today is like I build this list of requirements that the business needs. And based on those requirements, I try to find vendors that might fit those requirements exactly, specifically. If, of course, if I have one that can fix all the problems, perfect. If I don't have, then there will be a multi-vendor approach. But in the end of the day, at least, especially here at Backbase, if those requirements are too simple that we could fix our own, for example, we would decide to go the solution as ourselves and actually not go for any vendor. So the approach that I take today is like list of requirements, what vendors can fit that. Then we go for cost decision and all this kind of things, integrations and pluses and so on. But if you don't have, and usually I miss this a lot, companies, they don't have this maturity, so they say, okay, I need a code scanner, and there are a bunch of code scanners there, right? But why you need a code scanner? No, I need to find, I don't know, SQL injections. Okay, so this is your requirement. You don't need a code scanner with 1,000 rules. You just need to worry about OAuth top 10, for example. So this clarity on requirements, I would say, and I would suggest teams and people to start worrying about. Yeah? Best approach.
Yes, Ovi?
So in regards to that, I do have to agree that it depends a lot on the, or it's not a depend, it's strictly associated to the maturity of your organization. In my situation, in terms of solutions, basically, I have covered all the engineering aspects. Right, I have a tool, provides all the meaningful information, performs a toxic combination, reduces the time the engineers, the security engineers, and also the service owners have to dedicate to triage and understand, is that a true positive, it's a false positive, it's a critical, should I reduce the severity of it? So once you cover the specific basics from an engineering perspective, you enable the engineers, you enable the engineering managers to actually operate and digest the data. Then you go into your risk and compliance aspect. You provide them also the tools. Once you have covered those aspects, then the next logical step, at least in my situation, is to move into a quantitative approach. What does all those metrics that I have, what does that ocean of data that I have available, what does it mean in terms of quantitative? Because at the end of the day, all the investment that you're doing from a security perspective have to be quantitative and have to be transmitted and delivered to your senior leadership, to your CFO, to your CTO and CEO. And they don't speak an engineering language. They speak how much it costs me. What's my tolerance or fault tolerance appetite? How much money am I willing to lose in order to enable the business? Is my fault tolerance to have a 1 million loss every 24 hours? Is it 50 millions? I don't know. But so the strategy goes like that. Enable the engineering teams to have the ability to articulate the data. Then your risk and compliance department. And then on the maturity scale, you apply quantitative calculations to that data that enables you. In our situation, we are working with an existing provider that already covers those things, and due to we don't like to consider him a vendor or a provider, but rather a partner, because it allows us to prioritize their product roadmap, and they are willing to work with us to adjust their existing product to the needs that we have. So it's associated to that trust relationship that you said. Yes, you have a trust, you verify, but then that vendor, that specific company stops being a vendor, stops being a provider. It becomes a partner for your business to enable you to do the work that you're supposed to deliver.
Yes, exactly. I love this point, by the way. This is something that we've been talking about a lot, becoming a partner and building a partnership. It's not just becoming a partner, it's really building a partnership, especially here. We're doing that a lot with our customers. And I said it a lot, but our roadmap and what we're doing is a lot of it resides on the information and request we get from our customers. So we prioritize them to help them build a relationship with us, not just as a vendor, but as kind of creating a mutual success. And of course, most of what we're doing is to help our customers. So it's kind of the number one goal from us as a vendor is kind of to help our customers, get them to be successful. This is how the relationship will be improved, will be built, and will gain the trust not just of these customers but other customers. And I really think this point really is important. What I'd like to do with the time that we have left, I want to ask each of you to provide the best practice around a multi-vendor approach or around a single vendor approach, around relationship. For example, how do you maintain those kind of strong relationships, as we talked about performance, about anything that you like. So one thing that you like our audience to take away from this conversation, and maybe Hritik, we'll start with you.
Okay. So when I start with a single vendor, I would essentially say, well, the vendor I'm talking about, single vendor, would be something like, let's say AWS, where you don't really have a transparency of what's running in the background. You do know that certain things are, you have some sort of confidence that these projects might be running these things, but you don't have total transparency that it is exactly running this version of this software. In that case, in single vendor approaches, I don't really think you have lots of options or best practices over there. It's mostly like you need to do security. That's why you are doing security in that case. But when you grow out of it and you grow into a multi-vendor approach or a single vendor where the single vendor is transparently backed by a lot of different vendors, and where you can individually go and pick those individual vendors or maybe turn them on and off depending on your use cases. There, I would say you have a lot of extensibility. And obviously, since you have moved from that very like evident single vendor, like non-transparent single vendor, to this very transparent single vendor, or perhaps even a multi-vendor, which is kind of the same thing if you think about it. If you have a single vendor that gives you 10 other multi-vendors, right? Essentially, that single vendor is a part of your own team. So you can just say that, yeah, this is my team only, and I have multi-vendors, right? So it's the same thing. And you have in case you have multi-vendors, right? You have onboarded this seemingly single vendor into your team. You obviously want the knowledge transfer to happen across your entire security team. So you don't want to trust the only this new entity that has come up into your team. You want your entire team to actually know the multi-vendors that they are using. For example, let's say the single vendor using Joan as a static analysis tool, or some vulnerable code as vulnerability SCA tool. You would actually like to know these tools in detail as your security company itself, security team itself. So when you actually trust those tools, you don't actually evaluate the vendor itself. That's the last thing you do in the transparent vendor framework. What you do is you actually evaluate those of the specific tools, and then you see the single vendor as the aggregator, that these people are aggregating the entire information, prioritizing, giving you some insights based on their information. But is the information is something that you trust with to begin with? That's the major question you need to ask yourself. And you need to evaluate in that fashion, so that you evaluate first the multi vendors that they are using, and then finally the single vendor that they are right now. So that would be the advice I would.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Ovi, what do you feel?
So in regards to that, I think, at least personally, it might be that I'm biased. What I like to do is basically try to think, when I go for a solution, I like to think what it's the output and the outcome. Each solution has an output and it has a final outcome. So for example, if you want to adopt an EDR solution, that EDR solution would have an output that it's going to generate alerts and stop some breaches. The final outcome is basically going to reduce the time that your engineers will have to allocate into that. So first of all, that I think when I have to select the specific tools, or in that approach, I use output, outcome, and then the third decision that allows me to select the most suitable tool. It's basically the best solution in the class. So you want an EDR solution, go with the best solution. Take the three most well-renowned solutions that are outperforming, validate all of them, and then take the one that is more in line with your general strategy, your architecture, and potentially already existing tools. Because at the end of the day, that data you'll need to aggregate it in your data lake, and you're going to need to correlate it. So for me, it's that output, outcome, best in class.
That's a great point. Adam, what's yours?
I very much agree with Ovi. Make sure that you know what you want. My biggest advice to everyone listening to this is don't go and look at technologies. The moment you start looking at technologies, you're letting the technologies dictate your requirements. Go to the business. Make sure you understand what your requirements are, what sort of budget they want to spend, what are the risks they're trying to fix. And then when you've got a clear picture of all of that, you can then start looking at vendors and speaking to people, trusted partners, whether it's multiple vendors or a single vendor that you're already working with. Speak to them, get their advice, see what they offer, and make sure that whatever you're doing, you're always checking it back against that initial requirements. And then the final piece of advice I would give in line with that, see, that gives you your outputs, that gives you everything you need. Final piece of advice of it is at the end of it, before you commit to anything or before you put it forward for financing and everything else, ask yourself one honest question. If this was my money paying for it, if I owned this company, would I invest this money in this product?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's important also to understand that eventually, even though we're not spending our money ourselves, it's our money, it's the company's money, which makes it part of the company, which makes it kind of our money. So it's a great point. Cassio, what about you?
I would just follow what was Adam saying. If you don't know the requirements, if you don't understand this, to have this clear picture, it's like this maybe I don't know in English properly, but it's like this Wonderland, Alice in the Wonderland, right?
Mhm.
When she meets this rabbit and she's asking about the way, and the rabbit say, "Where are you going?" And she say, "I don't know." So he say, "So any path for you, it's okay. You don't know where you're going, so it doesn't matter, right?"
Yeah, I have this as my screensaver, by the way, in my computer. Exact sentence.
Nice.
I love it. I love this sentence. So it doesn't matter where you go if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Jean, what about you? What's your best practice?
For me, the best practice or the best strategy is when determining whether to use multi-sourcing or single sourcing, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. It is important to consider various factors such as your business objectives and priorities, the supplier market characteristics, supply chain requirements and constraints, and supplier relationship preferences and capabilities. By weighting the pros and cons of both strategy, you can decide which one suits your situation better. You may also use an hybrid approach where you use both strategies for different items or segments of your supply chain. And to finish, for instance, single sourcing may be beneficial for strategic items that are unique or high risk, while multi-sourcing may be more suitable for non-strategic items that are common or low risk.
It's good. It's very good. We have a few more questions I see in the chat. Let's spend 1 minute just to provide a quick answer. So I see, Ritik, you're already writing an answer. Ovi, how can a company know that the outcome they want and the outcome they need are the same?
Well, that's very associated to your
and you have 1 minute.
That's part of your due diligence in the process associating and analyzing the needs. So first of all, you need, as very well John mentioned, and the rest of the colleagues also stated, your business has an objective. The security strategy needs to support the business objectives. So all the activities that you're doing, you have to adopt OKRs, link them to those security strategies in order to support the organization. So all the outcome that you're going to generate must support that.
Fantastic.
I'm not sure if I'm providing you the answer that you're expecting.
Yeah. It's not my question. So the answer is really the answer that you're providing. And I think really due diligence is a key word. It's both internal and external. So you're doing due diligence internally, you're doing the due diligence externally. Adam, final one. Sometimes the companies don't even know what the budget is. So how they can make sure that they are setting on the right one? So any kind of advice?
Yeah, that's not sometimes. I've yet to work for a company that has ever known what its budget should be. And it's never ever enough as far as a CISO or a head of role is concerned. The way that you look at it is, what's the problem that you're trying to fix? What is the potential cost to the company if it goes wrong? What is the revenue going to be generated by being able to deliver and do something right? And then from that, you can work out a rough order of magnitude of budget. The easy answer is always, 10% of your IT spend, what you spend each year on IT, should be spent on security.
Yeah.
Most companies, they'd be lucky if they got 3 or 4%, but it's an easy rule of thumb. So when you ask how much budget you want, 10%. And if they say, well, that's too much, well, how many days could you go without having an IT solution in place? How many days could you operate if your data centers were gone, or if you couldn't access the cloud environments, or you lost your customer data?
Yeah, exactly.
And that gives you an idea of how much is appropriate to spend.
That's a good tip. So we're at time. I'd like to thank you, the audience, for joining us for this webinar. Thank you, the esteemed panelists, Ritik, Ovi, Adam, Cassio, and Jean. Thank you for joining us today. And I'll see you in our next episode. So stay tuned and watch for it. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, team.
Bye-bye.